Hello again, Broncos country.
Really excited to chop up some Broncos with y'all this week.
Bourbon, Broncos, and no BS.
Orange
It is that time, your favorite time of the week. We're not for the Raiders, Chargers, or Chiefs. So grab your brews and your fantasy league. We got that blue and orange blood that you bleed. Like Lindsay, Sutton, and Judy. We are that Mile High Broncos country.
Orange Weekly. Fans, brews, and Broncos news.
What's going on, y'all? Call it a special edition. Call it a Friday night fun time. Call it a light up your shirt and look like J-Rock tonight. We are here rocking with y'all tonight. We are doing a special show of the RAYgers show this week because we got Saturday football, 2:30 football, man. And if you're not familiar with what we do here, we're all about sports betting, fantasy perspectives, and we're going to be breaking down this Bills-Broncos game tomorrow, man. Y'all know us. We're Orange Weekly. We're all about fans, brews, Broncos news. We're the best source of Broncos content. And each and every week riding with me, man. Y'all call him Jared. I call him J-Rock. What's going on, brother?
Hey, what's going on? You know, I was torn between wearing the Christmas outfit because it's the last game before Christmas, right, or, you know, we're doing the old school, wearing the old school shirt. So I did both. I went with the both sides of this. I'm ready to make some money today, Ray.
Hey, man, we have had a hell of a ride, man. We are coming off of an incredible high. Drew Lock looking like the real deal. But the RAYgers bets this year, 29, 19, and 3. We've had a great time. We've made a lot of money. Last week, we should have made a little bit more money. We get kind of screwed at the very end of the game with Phillips Lindsay rushing yards. And then, of course, Fant goes out with some sort of foodborne illness in the middle of the game and doesn't return. So we go 2-2 last week. Again, due to come with some unusual circumstance, I think we would have been a 3-1, 4-0 type of day. But that's all right. We move on. We look at tomorrow, and let's figure out a way to make some money. So, again, if you're not familiar with the show, we're going to talk about sports betting, perspectives. We're going to talk about who we believe we can make some money on while we watch the Broncos tomorrow, Saturday at 2:30. But before we go to tomorrow, Jared, I always like to break down last week, man. Give me a little bit of just your initial reactions to the Drew Lock craze. Chugga, Drew. Are you jumping on that thing or not?
I'm still on the. I want to see more from Drew. I think a lot of people do. That was obviously a very well played, very well coached, very well executed game. KJ Hamler went off. I mean, that we finally got him into open field over the middle, and he just was burning people. But it was the Panthers who are also just as injury prone and had a bunch of COVID issues going on as well. I want to see that replicated a couple more times this week against maybe some teams that have a little bit better DBs. For example, Buffalo. So that's what I want to see. I want to see the consistency. I want to see it come in because I think right now we are the most inconsistent. We're the best, most inconsistent team in the league.
Ain't no doubt about that. And we talked about it before the game last week that Drew Lock and Pat Shurmur were playing for their jobs, right? I really legitimately believed, depending on what we're going to happen in these last 3 games, was going to be whether or not we were going to bring in a veteran that would be starting next year instead of Drew Lock, like a Matt Stafford type of voice, or we bring in somebody to kind of compete with Drew Lock. And I think Drew Lock maybe answered a few questions. We saw some glimpses of him. Best game by a long shot. Looked like he was in command the entire time. Of course, 4 Yutties, which was a huge, huge day. And ultimately the victory. What was the biggest difference? Like, Is it just simply that we were playing against the Carolina Panthers and the Carolina Panthers are the Carolina Panthers and that's why we look so dang good? Or was there something else that you saw in the game that was like, wow, yes, okay, I'm finally starting to see this type of play from Drew Lock. I'm starting to see this type of play call.
Well, I think the best part is we've been seeing it throughout the year. We've been seeing it's there. There's a possibility it's there, but for one reason or another, we mess it up. Whether it be a penalty or an errant throw or a bad read, everything's been there all season. We just need to kind of bring it together. And I think that was for the first time this season we saw it actually all come together with no errors, no errant passes, no like crazy, penalties bringing us back. And it all just kind of came together. Even on special teams, it came together. Like
the first time, like special teams has been just like the punchline of every single joke that we've made this entire year. And sure as shit enough, something good happened on special teams. I couldn't even believe my stinking eyes, man. So when we think about last week, I want to kind of focus there for a second. One interesting thing for me is Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay, are we starting to see a little bit of a divide between these two running backs? Of course, we are big, huge fans of Lindsay on this show. We've made a lot of money on Phillip Lindsay, but it's seen we got Melvin Gordon with 100-plus yard week the week before. Phillip Lindsay looking like he can't break a tackle. And then again, towards the end of the game, it seems like, Gordon was the only one that was getting any production to happen, and Phillip Lindsay just couldn't quite get anything going, couldn't get past the line freaking a scrimmage. Of course, cost us a few dollars, but Are we starting to see a divide there? I guess that's my question for you.
Yes, a little bit. And I don't think the carries are being changed at all. I think they're still 50-50 carries. But what we're seeing is that Melvin Gordon's able to break off a little bit more. And, we're paying him more. We're kind of expected him to come in to be that guy. I guess we're just now kind of finally starting to see it in an actual sense. And we'll get into this game a little bit later, but there's a little bit of a worry with our running back room going into this game.
Yeah. And one of the kind of takeaways, again, from last week, if we're thinking about this, and again, the goal for sports betting every single week is not necessarily to, try to make this big, crazy bet. We're trying to make as much of a prediction as we can. We want to predict the load. We're going to predict who's going to get a number of targets. Again, if you think about what we talked about last week, KJ Hamler was the number one target wide receiver for 2 straight weeks for the Broncos. That's why we hammered the KJ Hamler line last week, because we started to see a trend. What I'm asking here is, are we starting to see a trend with Lindsay that's going to start to dictate what we're going to do with our play call? Interesting thing, though, I think the first 2 times Lindsay touched the ball were pass plays, which I thought was so bizarre in that game, because I see Gordon as our sort of pass catching back, not Phillip Lindsay. But it seemed like the first 2 times they tried to get Lindsay involved, it was trying to get him into space. It was a little bubble screen. I'm wondering if the coaching staff is starting to think, dang, we got to get Lindsay just in open field somehow, some way. And that was, I think, an interesting takeaway as we start to think through some of these things.
Absolutely. And it's good. It's good for the team too, because it doesn't matter who the running back is back there. It could be a run play or a pass play. And I think that's something that, at the beginning of the season, we kind of struggled with, that you kind of knew it was going to be run play if Lindsay was in there, because he doesn't pass block very well and doesn't really catch it.
Right.
But now with him going out and catching balls, I think it kind of puts a little bit more of that kind of spin on it. It's kind of hard to cover. You don't know for sure it's a run if Lindsay's in there.
Yeah, Fidel, thanks for chiming in, man. We always love y'all rolling with us each and every week. I see some great analysis there. Yeah, it's just an interesting perspective. Again, trying to predict how many carries, how many things. If you're looking at the sports betting lines last week, Phillip Lindsay was projected to have 7 carries in the game. That's where the sports bet over-under was. He went over that 7 carries, but he didn't get to his 27 yards, which I thought was quite interesting for us as we started to make our bet that week. He was looking at like 2 yards a carry, and that is something that we just cannot see from Phillip Lindsay.
Well, that was our biggest frustration last week, as we went hard on Phillip Lindsay. He had the yardage, and then he had that loss of 4 yards on that last play where we were trying to run out the clock. Like, obviously, good play call, can run out the clock time to get it out, but losing 4 yards really screwed over. We lost us some money. Hey, Ray, I'm getting a little thirsty over here. What time is it?
I'm pretty sure it's beer 30. Let's have some beer, brother. Man, Jed, I forgot about our dang thing, man, as we do it each and every week, man. But I'm hanging out here with Firestone Union Jack IPA. There we are. I love to bring something new and different every week for y'all. Tasty you want over here.
Yeah, I'm going with the, I just moved up to northern, kind of like middle South California, up the San Luis Apistro Slow Brew Company Mustang IPA. It's pretty good. It's the first time I tried it. It's pretty good stuff.
Tasty stuff, man. Hopefully, if y'all are riding with us on this Friday night, we'll probably find a way to crack a few cold ones during the game tomorrow. So let's tie up the Lindsey thing and let's go into next week here. Lindsey's big thing. The first 7 weeks of the year, I think minus his couple of injured games, he had one run of at least 20 yards in every single one of those games. In the last 3 games, no runs over 20 yards. I think that's what we're starting to see, a little bit of that hindrance on Lindsey. Of course, we know he's got breakaway speed. He's got to get that past that first level. I don't think he's gotten past the first level in 2 straight weeks, and that's been just something for us to keep track of as we start to break down this week. All right, we look to the Bills tomorrow. Potentially the sexy, slamming through tables type of crazy shit they do up in Buffalo. Potentially one of the greatest, most energetic fan bases there is out there, and possibly, quite possibly, a sexy sort of preseason pick to win it all. Bills have kind of sputtered at times, but they look like they have found their groove. We go in tomorrow. Bills, 7th overall rating for their overall team per Pro Football Focus, 10th offensive rating, 13th defensive rating. Seems like they're just good all around. What is your just first analysis of the Bills? And then we'll start to break down position groups here in a second.
Yeah, it seems like they finally have their groove. Last year they struggled pretty hard, and this year they came in and they're rolling through pretty well. And a lot of their games are really high scoring. They finally found, with Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen, they're really getting their groove on, and that's, I think, the biggest piece. They're blowouts. Their defense is letting up numbers, but their offense is they look like the Kansas City Chiefs of the East Coast right now. They're really putting up some numbers, and it's really difficult to stop them on defense, and that's what's really coming down. But who would have thought, obviously, with everything going on, I think New England has won that division for the past 15, 20 years or something like that, and now they're out here. They have a chance to clinch their division against us tomorrow.
Yeah, and Allen's he's the guy that has just been so interesting to see him play, man. He finally figured out how to throw the ball. I'm hoping Drew Lock makes the same leap that Allen made from year 2 to year 3. If you look at Allen's career, he was the worst in the league at completion percentage in his first 2 years. And this year, I think he's completing like 68% of his passes. Guess who? Trivia. Anybody want to guess who's worse in the league right now at pass completion percentage? Drew Lock right now. So it's an interesting thing. I'm hoping that maybe we can see that same stride. I think Allen is probably not quite in the MVP conversation yet, but I think he's on that first tier looking in on the MVP conversation this year. He's a really interesting player. And man, Allen looks like he's got it going on for sure.
Yeah, and I think Fidel hit on it right on the head. I think Diggs is the best free agency pickup of the offseason. I think that really changed the tide for the Buffalo Bills going into this game. Not just this game, but this season, and as they're getting ready to, whether it's this week, hopefully not this week, but in the next couple of weeks, clinch their division and make it to the playoffs.
So if you're not used to rolling with us, we do a podcast each and every week. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to do our first segment here today. So we're just going to break down position groups. And so we're going to look at what do we got, Jared?
I'm just going to stop it. If you guys are watching right now, go on to whatever podcast following your devices. Make sure you guys are following RAYgers, just exactly like it's spelled, RAYGERS on any of your podcast listening. We come out every week and do this. Make sure you guys are following it, and then make sure you follow Ray on Twitter, OW RAYgers. It's Orange Weekly, OW RAYgers on Twitter.
RAYgers like a wager with y'all got it.
It's his name.
So here's how we do it. We're going to break down position groups, and we're going to start with the wide receiver groups, and we're looking at our wide receivers against the Buffalo Bills cornerback secondary area. KJ Hamler again coming on, leading the Broncos in targets and leading our team in wide receiving yards last week. Jerry Jeudy looking like a decent day with his 45-yard type of day. Tim Patrick getting a little bit of love towards the end, especially with the touchdown play. Who's got an advantage here? Us, them, wide receivers versus their cornerbacks. Who's got an advantage?
Right now, it's their cornerbacks. And the biggest part is their safeties are playing very, very well. Carlos Hyde is having an amazing season right now. Or Micah Hyde, sorry, not Micah Hyde is having an amazing season right now. Jordan Poyer out there. Both their corners are pretty healthy right now. I think we have the good thing that we have is I think there's no real definition. There's no real defined number one between Tim Patrick and Jerry Jeudy in our offense, the way that we run it. One day, Jerry Jeudy is the number one guy. The next day, Tim Patrick. I mean, last week we saw KJ Hamler was the number one guy, so it really doesn't matter. But I kind of like that because they have very strong sides and then they have a weak side. And if we could take advantage of that weak side, the problem is the way, and with sports betting, we don't know which side's going to be on that side at any given time.
And Fidel, thanks for chiming in, man. Really appreciate the engagement today. Hamler will decide this game. Yeah, Hamler is kind of our answer to Hill over there, Tyreek Hill in Kansas City. Interesting player for us. One thing we got to take into account this week, though, and I'm just projecting here a little bit. I think we're going to be behind. I still think Drew Lock's got something to prove. And when we get into the running back conversation, I think we see two questionable, probable little answers right next to Gordon and Lindsey. If you look at the injury report this week, I think that gives us a little bit of pause about our run game this week. But let's move our way into the interior now. We're going to look at our tight ends against their middle linebackers, and their safety core. Does Fant have any sort of advantage this week?
Yes, absolutely. If anything, and this is something we said last week, and if you guys followed us, if you guys are following us on the podcast, your podcast listening devices, I mean, every single week we are throwing Fant down every single week, because every single week I don't think there's a linebacker, really coverage linebacker, that could truly cover Fant fully. And if they are, they have to keep him on Fant 100% of the time, which is not sustainable. So I love Fant in this game. I think if anything, Fant's going to be the difference maker. Those short passes, the short inside, get him one-on-one with a linebacker and let him get out into coverage. I love Fant this week, coming off of a game where he missed because of some sort of foodborne illness, just like Garrett Bowles did. He's going to have something to prove there. We need to get him the ball.
Yeah, and if you look at fantasy projections, the Bills give up the 28th most fantasy points to tight ends in the entire NFL. So if you're talking about a weakness on their team, it is definitely giving up fantasy points to tight ends. And it's interesting because they come from a division that doesn't have strong tight end play. So that tells me that tight ends are really taking advantage of them this year. If you have Fant in your lineups, or you're looking at any daily fantasy lineups, I think Fant is a must play this week. I think he's got a lot to prove. We'll get to his yards here in a second. Let's go to the running back group and tell me what we know about running backs right now and who's going to play, if anybody. Should we just put out a line for Rolls-Royce Freeman right now, or what should we do this week, brother?
Yeah, so right now it looks like, I mean, both Gordon and Lindsey were limited in practice all week, and they're both questionable to play. I think they both will play. It's just in what aspect and how much they're going to get if we're going to start limiting them. If I'm going to put my money, I'm going to put my money that Melvin Gordon will still carry the workload, and they're going to try to rest up Phillip Lindsay and go from there. But we haven't heard anything from, you watch all the media days and everything. We haven't really heard much from Coach about those two until the injury report came out earlier today. Obviously today they didn't have their walkthrough because the strength and conditioning coach had been tested positive. Yep. So we really didn't get much of anything today. We didn't get a media day. We didn't get what we're looking like tomorrow. So that's a huge question, is what our running back room looks like. If anything, if one of those guys misses, we might be looking at still a 2-back set, but we're talking about having somebody else in the backfield.
Yeah, interesting. Hard to project and hard to put a number on it right now. We're not seeing any lines out on Phillip Lindsay, so I'm thinking that Phillip Lindsay is the more probable or more questionable one to play. We do see lines on Melvin Gordon as of right now. Quarterback play, man. Drew Lock, chugga. Drew, man, are you jumping on the train? Drew Lock's just general chances this week. What are we talking about? Defensive line pressure from the Bills? Is Drew Lock going to be running for his life, or is he going to have a chance to sit back and make some decisions this week?
So the pressure from the Bills is going to come from the blitz. They're one of the top blitzing teams in the league, just like we are. And if we could protect, the only real person I'm worried about right now on their defensive line is going to be Jerry Hughes on the outside. Luckily, their interior defensive line is not very good, because that's where we struggle, is our interior offensive line. I think both of our tackles, with Garrett Bowles coming back, should be able to take that edge rusher. I think he's going to have the time. And again, just like you said, I believe 100% he has more to prove. Coming off of a big game. He just got AFC Air Player of the Week, and he still has a lot to prove. And with the absence of possibly one of our top running backs or injured running backs, he might have to be throwing. And on top of, like you said, there's a possibility we might be down early. He's going to be throwing the ball. Now, whether or not he plays it safe, he plays the clock control like he did last week and just take the open options, or he does, what Fidel here says, 2 touchdowns and possibly interception. I like that look. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 287 yards. I think he goes, not to take away anything from you, but I think he goes over on his passing yards this week in the betting world.
And we're going to jump in on there for a second, but Fidel, the line is sitting at 240 yards right now for Drew Lock. So if you like 287, I think that's a pretty good deal. Again, trying to make some projections on some of those things that we're going to touch on. The over-under on his touchdowns is sitting at 1.5, and it's sitting at even juice right now. So that tells you that the betting public thinks that there's a 50-50 shot that he's going to throw for 2 touchdowns. I am with you. I think he's still got a lot to prove. Let's do a quick flip around. I see a couple of comments coming in on just how our defense is going to be this week here. I see how will our 3 cornerbacks do if we have all 3 that are healthy, right? Give us a kind of a breakdown of our quarterback situation. We're seeing some great things, but we also still have, we have a suspension and a couple of lingering injuries. What's happening there? Or is Diggs going to just have a humongous day?
So here's what I like about what we did, and I am a huge fan of this move. After Philly didn't use him properly, we brought back Will Parks, and he proved to be the difference maker last week against Carolina. He really, really did. He is stepping up in the shoes of Bryce Callahan in a way that nobody really thought they could as a slot corner. He's labeled as a safety, but he's playing that slot corner. We played him there last year, and he played so well. I think that's the guy that's going to be up against Diggs. I do believe that we're going to try to pull Justin Simmons over the top of Diggs just because of that pressure, but they have other possible options too to throw to. But Stephon Diggs is their number 1 guy. I think what we're going to do is we're going to take Will Parks and throw Justin Simmons over the top. Now the other 2 guys, Ojemudia and Bosby. Ojemudia has been really stepping up. Obviously a rookie. He's really stepped up in his role, and this is one of those games that it is what it is. Like, if we lose this game, but we get to see more of Ojemudia, I think he's a long-term corner for us. I think he's a long-term starting guy, and that's what I really like about this game specifically. He's going to be challenged, and I want to see how he steps up into the face of the challenge.
Yeah, and Jerry asking here, when will Von Miller play again? He put out that cryptic tweet last week that said something like, I'll be back this year, don't you worry about it. And then the guy that probably ruined it for everybody was Tua Tagovailoa with the Miami Dolphins winning their 8th game of the year. Basically, right. The Miami Dolphins win their 9th game. The Broncos have been eliminated from the playoffs, although there's a statistical backdoor chance with the Raiders losing last night. So we're not going to get totally into that, but if basically we need Miami to lose out for the rest of the year and a bunch of other shit to happen. Unless all of that happens, Jerry, we will not see Von Miller until next year. Great. Thanks, Von. We'll see you next year. All right. Time for that over-under game that we play, where I'm going to give Jared the lines for the week, and he's going to tell me over or under, or where he thinks he's going to be. Let's tease the Drew Lock line we did. Drew Lock is at 243 passing yards this week. I want to give you one other little nugget. The Bills give up the 24th most fantasy points to quarterbacks in the entire league. Here's another little nugget. A 3rd place and a 4th place team in the daily fantasy millionaire makers had Drew Lock as their starting quarterback last week. That led, $20,000 and $50,000 payouts. Drew Lock, I think, had the 2nd or the 3rd best fantasy day of any quarterback of the day last week. Might be a worthwhile start. Again, I believe that Drew Lock is still trying to prove something. I think Pat Shermer's still coaching for his job. Drew Lock over under 243 yards.
Over 243 yards. There's 2 ways this is going to happen. This is going to be a close game and a shootout, or this is going to be a game that we go down early and we have to throw and try to force things, which is going to force him to get 20, 30-yard passes down the field. I say he is going to go over 200 and, what did you say, 43 yards? 243
yards. Again, I'm with you. The Bills are going to score. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's going to be hot butter tomorrow. I think it's going to be a bend, don't break type of mentality for the Denver Broncos defense. I think the Bills put some points up on the board. It's going to force Drew Lock to put the ball in the air. I also like the over 243. Jerry Jeudy, 41.5 yards. Over or under?
This is tough, and you're going to ask me the same thing about Tim Patrick, and I'm going to say the same thing. I don't know who's going to be the number guy. If we're talking about if he's going to go over 243 yards, he's got to go to at least 2 to 3 receivers are going to go over 50.
Right.
I don't think we're going to have another single, KJ Hamler having all the catches all day. But this is tough because it seems like in through the weeks, I don't think there's many games that Jerry Jeudy and Tim Patrick have both been over 50 yards. I think it's either one or the other, so that's going to be difficult. However, I do think, and we've talked about this before, I do think that Jerry Jeudy is due for a big game. I think he's due for a big game, and I think that they're going to focus on Tim Patrick because he is our number 1 receiver in the way that we look at it. I think Jerry Jeudy goes over 44 yards.
I'm with you as well. I think Judy is over. The interesting thing, and when we start to pair those lines together, if y'all haven't been following here, there's a couple ways that we can see a little bit in the lines that give us a little bit of an edge, though. Jerry Judy's even juice on 3.5 catches right now. So the betting public is believing it could be a 50-50 shot on 3.5 catches. If you think Jerry Judy's going to have at least 4 catches in the game, I think over 41 is a great bet for you all. I like it as well. I think he's the best way to do it right there.
And this is on to John's point. Just as a point, on to John's point, I think whoever's Tre'Davious White is lining up against, it's going to be difficult to get that person the ball. He is playing lights out cornerback play right now. It's going to be whoever's on the other side, and depending on down and distance on what they're playing against.
Yeah, but interesting, though, if we compare that to Tim Patrick, 49.5 yards this week. So the betting public believes Tim Patrick is actually going to be the top receiver for the Denver Broncos. Also, if you look at his juice on his receptions, it's like minus 140 juice on 3.5 receptions. Do you think Tim Patrick goes over 49? And I'll ask you the question, who has a bigger day, Patrick or Judy?
So honest opinion, I could be completely wrong, and I'll come, eat my hat next week. But here's the thing:
eat your visor next week.
Eat my visor. You're right. I still got it right here, guys. I'm not lost on the visor. I'm not lost on the visor. Here's my thing. I think Jerry Judy's going to have a bigger game yardage wise. I do think Tim Patrick is going to score. So I think that he might not hit 49 yards, but he might have 3 receptions for 30 yards and a touchdown, because we look at him hard in the end zone. Him and our tight ends are 2 end zone threats. That's why I think this is going to be it. And I agree.
Bonus question, Jared. Who has the most touchdowns on the Denver Broncos roster right now this year?
The most Tim Patrick.
Tim Patrick and Melvin Gordon both tied for 6 touchdowns this year. So, yeah, you're right. Tim Patrick, he finds a way. He's got a knack for the end zone. I don't like Tim Patrick's line again. I think we're seeing a little bit of a lack of production from him. A little bit. He's over those 100-yard games last week. Not quite where we saw him. 5 targets, 3 catches, 36 yards, and he's Yeti. He's an interesting one. I might stay away from that line. KJ Hamler, 35.5. Where do you like it?
KJ Hamler, 45.5. I like that because 35. I love that. I love KJ Hamler at 35. You could tell that we're getting him back, and that's 2 weeks in a row that we really focused on making sure that we got him the ball. They do not have the slot corner that we do to be able to cover what we're taking over. They don't have anybody other than maybe their safeties over the top. I think it's going to be more difficult. I don't think we're going to get those big breakaway speeds, but you could tell that both Pat Shurmur and Drew Lock know that he has the speed that you have to take a glance at him at least at some point during some of these plays, because there's a chance that he could pop open that big play. I love over 34 yards.
Let's rewind 5 weeks, okay? I'm just going to go 5 weeks ago. We're talking about the Atlanta game. KJ Hamler, 10 targets. Raiders game, 10 targets. Miami game, 6 targets. Then we have the week where, we get the whole New Orleans deal. I'm not going to worry about that week right there. 5 targets. And then last week, only 3 targets, but he gets 86 yards. Listen,
and 2 touchdowns.
If you have any questions about who the number 1 target is on the Denver Broncos right now, it is not Jerry Jeudy. It is not Tim Patrick. It is KJ Hamler. KJ Hamler is Drew Lock's maybe second favorite. We'll talk about Noah Fant here in a second here, because I know that Fidel wants to know about Noah Fant here. But
yes,
KJ Hamler may just be Drew Lock's favorite deal. 35 yards I still think is incredibly undervalued. He has covered 35 yards in 4 or 5 out of his last 6 games. If you want to talk about trends, that's a trend right there. Mark that down. That's a rager. We're definitely taking KJ Hamler this week, no doubt about it. Noah Fant. Oh man, I love Noah Fant. You want to talk about a list of people that don't owe me money? Noah Fant is not on that list, because that dude made me money this year. 41 yards for Noah Fant. What do we think?
He's made up for the money that he lost me last year. No, I love it. If he stays healthy, we lost the bet last week because we didn't. Obviously, you can't tell with those kind of last minute foodborne illnesses. I love Noah Fant. I love Noah Fant over every week. I think I'd say like 95% of the weeks. I think there's only 1 week we didn't take the over on Noah Fant. I think, again, like you said, KJ Hamler, Noah Fant is the number 1 guy. And honestly, it looked like even after last week, the tight end is the number 1 target for Drew Lock. And it works. And it works every single time. And I love it. So I love Noah Fant because he's got the athleticism to get the ball in his hands and get upfield. He's got the athleticism of a receiver and the size of a tight end. I love it. Yeah,
if you have any questions, you're right. I kind of teased the KJ Hamler deal. But our boy Drew Lock, man, he just loves his tight ends, man. I mean, we saw as high as 18 or 20 completions to a tight end. We also saw last week Vanette getting 8 targets. All 8 of those targets would have been Noah Fant's targets. I think Noah Fant gets 8 targets again this week. I think he's going to crush. Before we get to the game line, though, I got a fun one for you this week, Jared. You know, this is just for I lost fantasy football playoffs with him out. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, John. Again, I think Fant is a top 10 tight end, probably a top 5 tight end in this league, man. He is the real deal, no doubt about it. All right, let's do something kind of fun this week for you, Jared. We're going to do a rapid fire, but because the game is out tomorrow, we have these lines already. I'm going to give you over-under yardage on the longest completion for each one of these wide receivers, okay? So their longest completion.
Okay.
Play, and just give me a quick yay, over or under. KJ Hamler, over 18.5 yards is his longest completion.
Over.
Tim Patrick, 20.5 yard completion. Over or under?
Under.
Judy, 20.5 yards. Over or under?
Over.
And Noah Fant, 16.5 yards, longest completion.
Over.
I agree as well, man. I love Noah Fant, dude. I love him, man.
You know what it's going to be? It's going to be a 5-yard reception and a 20-yard run.
Right, exactly, man. And again, we've talked about this 1,000 times. Noah Fant, all of last year in the 18-19 football year. I'm sorry, that'd be 19-20 football year. Number 1 in tight ends and yards after the catch. Noah Fant got enormous breakaway speed. I like all those lines, man. I think you nailed them. That's probably where I would have put them. I love Noah Fant over 16.5 yards. I think that's it. We don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. I get all that good stuff, but I might ride or die with Noah Fant tomorrow. I might be eating ramen noodles on Christmas or Christmas on Christmas, given Noah Fant tomorrow, man. That's it. I'm not messing around. All right, let's go to the game, and then we'll do a quick wraparound. Bills, -5 right now. They are a 5-point favorite this week. And let me just pause for a second. Beep. Everybody that's listening, hold on one second. If you would have asked me this question 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, in the New Orleans Saints week before, after that week, I bet you the Bills would have been about an 11 or 12-point favorite today. I truly believe that. I think the line hasn't moved tremendously. The line opened up, I think in the -6 range. I think it went all the way up to -8 at one point in time, and then it has trickled all the way back down to -5 for the Bills. Do you think the Bills beat the Broncos by 5 points? Do you think the Broncos cover by 5 points? Do you think the Broncos win? I don't know. What do you think, Jared, to that line?
So there's 2 things that I have to look at this. I look at it as a Broncos fan, and I say, hell no, we could beat them, right? We could beat them. We can go in there. We could keep it a close game because it seems like a lot of their games are close. But then you take a closer look at 6 points. They have only had 2 wins this season that have been less than 6 points. Everything else they've won by more than 6, and that's a tough stat. As an analyst, it's kind of hard to look past. If you honestly believe that we cannot win this game, I would not take that line, only because statistically, if they're going to win, they're going to win by more than 6 points.
Yeah, and you look at that -5 line, and we've talked about this so many times through the years. This is the teaser. This is a great teaser line here. If you like the Bills, tease them down. You get them down to +1 for the game. All they got to do is win the game. I think that's a great deal. Broncos, it's just so hard, man. Do we see Drew Lock of last week, or do we see the Drew Lock of 3 weeks ago where we can't even move the ball? We see 2 errant throws, and next thing you know, the Broncos have scored 10 points in the game. I think that makes things incredibly, incredibly hard. One thing, though, I like to always look at, I like to always think about, I like to always share, though. If we look at the points that are projected, and we're seeing here, the Bills' total points is projected at 27.5 for the game. The Broncos' total points are projected at 21.5 for the game. If I'm looking at both of those lines, the Bills are actually not seeing positive or seeing negative juice there. The people think actually they're going to be under 27.5 points this week. And the Broncos, we're seeing over juice. We think the betting public thinks that the Broncos are going to score more than 21.5 points this week. It's interesting. I'm not going to take this line. I'm not going to mess with this game. I don't care. I'm going to sit back. I might bet every single one of these longest receptions, open up a 12-pack of beer, and I might just hang out and watch the game because it's Saturday football. I'm not touching the -5. I think that is an interesting line for us. I think that we're going to have something to think about there. Fidel just put this in here. Jared, do you think this will have any deal? McManus redemption. I believe McManus is out for the game, if I read that correctly. And so we have actually a kicker that's been hiding on our practice squad that they just said, listen, we're going to pay you $10,000 a week to just stay home and kick field goals at your local high school. Don't even come near the facility because I think McManus is out. Does that play a role in any way, shape, or form this week?
Yeah, no, it's exactly what we did after the fiasco in New Orleans. We realized what are the two most important things that's really difficult to get past: quarterback and kicker. Those are the two most difficult things to get past. We brought in this reserve kicker. I have no idea who he is. I have not seen any. I don't know where he's coming from. I don't know what he does. He might go out there and score 12 points, and I don't know. What I do know is that McManus was the most consistent thing on our football team, hands down. There's been a couple times he missed a couple until last week. He missed a couple extra points, but it was really difficult. He's kicked in 54, 56-yard field goals. We can't do that with this backup kicker. I don't think we get down to the 30-yard line and are comfortable kicking the field goal. So what we might see is Gus going for it on fourth down in between the 30 and 40, just because we don't have that faith in our kicker. I think that's going to be the biggest difference in this game. And it's going to have a lot of people getting mad at the coaches for going for it and not understanding situational awareness. But yeah, you're right. McManus being out it does hurt us. It hurts us in different ways, but I don't think it's going to be a game changer.
Because, when it's a game changer, if we're kicking field goals, but I guess with Drew Lock nowadays, he don't even give a damn about field goals. We just going to score touchdowns all the way. So I'm good with that, Drew Lock. If you'd like to do that again tomorrow, I'm good with that. Jared, over under 49.5 points on Saturday. I almost said on Sunday, but that would have made sense.
Tomorrow. Yeah, over.
Game tomorrow.
I'm taking the over. I think this is going to be a shootout game. It looks like we finally figured out for a couple weeks in a row how to get not in a row, but for a couple weeks now, we know how to get in the end zone. And I think we finally kind of figured out what we need to do to be able to get into the end zone, into the red zone, and into the end zone. I think it's going to be over. We're going to score a couple touchdowns. They're going to score multiple touchdowns. And I think this game legitimately is going to be a shootout. I don't think there's going to be anything boring about this game. That's for sure.
Love it. John says definitely over. Hey, if you like the over, here's where you can find some value. Again, we talk about finding these values. Right now, the team total touchdowns for the Broncos is projected at 2.5 touchdowns for the team. And you're paying even juice on that. It's minus 110 juice right now. So if you think the game is over, you think the Broncos have a shot here, what you can definitely do is, if you want to do that, you can just bet over 2.5 touchdowns for the Broncos, knowing McManus is out, knowing the likelihood to be a bit more aggressive, maybe taking that fourth down shot at the 30, 35-yard line, so that way we're not kicking a 50-yard field goal, but we're going for it. That is a line that might be a little bit interesting for you to think about. Over 2.5 touchdowns may be something that's worthwhile. John says he might already be smashing that line right there. So you go ahead and hit that, John, if you'd like. Over 2.5. Right now, even juice. It's a line that you can get even juice on right now, which I think is really, really interesting. So, Jared, I'm with you. I think we're going to see some touchdowns. You take the line however you think you want to take it. If you want to take over 49.5 or over 2.5 touchdowns, I'm going to take over 2.5 touchdowns. That, to me, feels like a safer place to be. I think Drew Lock throws 3 touchdowns again. I'm going to just say it. I'm going to throw it out there for the betting public to hear. His line is setting at 1.5. That could be another space that you might find some value, is taking over 1.5 Drew Lock touchdowns. Maybe Gordon farts into the end zone. We'll see what happens there. We'll see what we go on from there. All right.
As we come back around the horn, did you see that viral picture of the guy that posted I think it was a Philip Lindsay interview back probably earlier in the season, and he posted something along the lines of he's going to eat his own poop if he scores over 3 touchdowns.
Yes.
And that was just going around. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, if you missed that, it was I think it was a live press conference. Maybe on Facebook or something, and some dude said, if Drew Lock throws over 3 touchdown passes at any point during this year, I'll eat a pile of shit or something.
I'll eat a pile of human poop.
Human poop, I think is what he said. And so that guy might have to do 2 different rounds of human poop on that one.
Oh, love it.
All right, we love KJ Hamler. KJ Hamler and the tight end room are the number 1 target for Drew Lock. We're going to take over KJ Hamler. We're taking over on Noah Fant's yards at 41.5. Hey, get froggy. If you go onto FanDuel, if you go onto DraftKings, you can take a bet on how long their longest completion is. Again, I love Noah Fant over 16.5 yards. Jared liked over Judy's and over KJ Hamler. I love Drew Lock throwing for 2 touchdowns. I love the Broncos scoring over 2.5 times. I want to see a fun game. Hell, I'd be comfortable if we're back here next week, Jared, and we lost 45-36. I'd be good with that because I'd be up hooting and hollering, and if we just see a lot of action, that would be unflippin' believable. So here we go, blowing on my feed. Not the kind that you would think of, oh, John, this is kind of funny.
Yeah.
And Jose, thanks for chiming in. We broke it down and everything. Red Cloud, thanks, Derek. He thinks Denver's going to win by 7. I love it, man. He's calling it right now. Call his shot, man. We are the RAYgers Show. You can find us everywhere. You can find your podcast. That's RAYgers, like Wager, Ray. Y'all got it. RAYgers. I'll post some fun content tomorrow on my Twitter feed. Let's try to make some money. Let's have a good time. We got Saturday afternoon football. It's a great excuse, man. It's supposed to be 50 degrees in Colorado. Fire up that grill. Get the cooler out. Let's sit back, relax, enjoy a Broncos game. Hopefully a Broncos victory, man. Jared, you got anything good for the good of the order?
Hey, that's good. I like it. We still have a chance. The playoffs are not mathematically eliminated, although it's long. I do just want to see a good game. I want to see very minimal mistakes, and I just want to see us go out there and put it to the Buffalo Bills. And honestly, that's where it really all comes down to, right, Clow? Go Broncos.
I love it, man. We have. You're right. December football. It may look like it might be fun. I think Drew Lock is still playing for his chance to be the guy next year. It should be a lot of fun. J Rock, I always love riding with you, man. Much love. Let's rock. Let's go.
Always.
And of course, go Broncos. Cheers, y'all.
Go Broncos. Cheers.
Do what I like. Yeah, I do what I like. Yeah, I do what I like. Sipping goose, sip is right, and I go with the flow. Yeah, I go with the flow. Yeah, I go with the flow. 'Cause I know I'm the show. In the zone, here I go. In the zone, here I go. In the zone, here I go. Yeah, they know